Pre-purchase inspection went wrong. My good people, we were called yesterday by a client who had bought a vehicle. So not every mechanic that you can see putting on an overall is someone who you can take with to go and do a pre-purchase inspection. Yes, they could be your mechanic, you trust them, they repair your vehicles, but pre-purchase inspection also have to have someone who is a bit technical. Yeah, so the client contacted a loss assessors. He had bought a vehicle, so the vehicle he tried, he did his best. He called a mechanic. The mechanic went and checked the vehicle. He was buying it's a locally used vehicle. So the mechanic went, he inserted the launch. They went for a road test, and they couldn't find anything. So they were good to go. They struck the deal, and the client bought the vehicle. But yesterday, the client called Ideal Loss Assessor for a further pre-check and health report on his vehicle, because after buying that vehicle, he found the vehicle could not start after some 2-3 days. So he contacted Ideal Loss Assessors, where we wanted to go and check what could be the problem. After doing all that, after doing the pre-purchase inspection to one of these mechanics that you trust, and they came up with that problem. So that one triggered me to come and cover with you what could have happened, because you can see here this vehicle was driven from Mombasa Road. You want to Roysambu, but also if you are selling a vehicle to someone, kindly do the due diligence. At least before they go for road test, check the level of the engine oil, all the coolants, if they're in order, or if all the flaps are properly tightened before you give your vehicle to someone to go and test, to take them for a road test. So in this scenario, the mechanic drove that vehicle and the radiator cap was not properly tightened. And there's some other issues you can see here that the mechanic did not check. And now that bring us to our today's coverage. So with me here is it's a 4-stroke circle repeats of engine, but we'll cover this later. But let's look at the oil spillage. When you are doing pre-purchase inspection, there are things that the OBD scanner cannot cover, because like you can see, there are no sensors that detect how the piston rings are worn out, or they're what is the OBD scanner will give you is the P00300 code, the error code. That is the compression error. So with me here, it's a piston, well elaborated diagram of a piston and how it operates and what can cause this kind of oil spillage you can see over here. So with me here is that piston. So we can see here that is the piston itself. So we have the intake valve, spark plug, exhaust valve, piston rings. This is the piston itself, engine oil, and this is the crankcase at all. Then we have the dipstick, how these things operate. So during the intake, this intake valve is opened. That is during the intake stroke. Then after it opens, the air flows in, it's mixed with fuel. Then we have the air fuel mixture here. Then we go to the second compression stroke. So during the compression stroke, the piston moves upwards. The piston moves upward. When the piston moves upward, it compressed this air fuel mixture to its required temperature. For diesel vehicle, there's no spark plug. The air is compressed to a maximum compression temperature, and now after the compression, the air gets warm due to the compression, and it ignites itself, pushing the piston downward. But for the petrol engine, we have a spark plug. After the compression, the spark plug is ignited, and ignition causes the compressed air and fuel mixture to combust, pushing the piston downward. So in this scenario, for this client, we have what was happening is there was excess pressure being created. So all of you know that the piston is made of steel, and the valve sleeves are also steel. So with time, worn out piston rings brushes this friction that is normally here. It brushes the walls and creating a very tiny gap. So once or during compression, with the compressed air here, when there's much pressure compressed or in the fuel compression, in the fuel air mixture, the compressed air with the friction that had occurred between the piston and the sleeves of the engine, the gaps that are here, the air will try and look for the weak point where it's going to escape. And where is it going to escape with? With these leakages that are created on the walls, that the marks that normally brushes the friction that was there, so the air fuel mixture will try to escape here, exerting much pressure on the engine oil. So the pressure will try to escape in the positive crankcase ventilation, this positive crankcase ventilation. So if there's so much pressure that the positive crankcase ventilation was not going to withstand, the oil will start leaking through the oil dipstick, like we can see here. So my good people, this is something that occur gradually. Okay, so that one causes your vehicle to have now low compression pressure and oil loss of oil due to the leakages here, because now if there's much pressure here, and we normally know that oil is here to lubricate the crankshaft, the piston itself, and there's a weak or worn piston rings, the oil is going to find its way to the compression chamber, and now you start having your vehicle having so much smoke. So my good people, that is what normally happens. So you find some oil coming out through the dipstick and sometimes through the engine oil cap. So my good people, when that such kind of scenario happen, we are going to have some two defects. We can say them. If there's leakage here, we are going to experience something called low engine compression pressure. That is number one. Number two, we're also going to have some oil leakages of oil through this. The build-up oil pressure pushes the oil, and there will be leakages of oil through these gaps that are created between the piston and the piston sleeves. So once the leakages are here, we are going to have something called oil leaks. Then the oil finds itself its way to the combustion chamber, and it's burned with fuel. Now you will be experiencing what we call smoke engines, and at the end of the day, you are going to require a replacement of an engine. So my good people, it's proper to know when and how, or who you want, or who does a pre-purchase inspection to your vehicle. So in that case, that was what was happening in this our client. So my good people, if you're intending to buy a vehicle, if you're intending to purchase a vehicle, be it a locally used vehicle or an import vehicle, Ideal Loss Assessors is here to sort you out. We are at 0702 02 7413. Okay, so that is how we can come and help you out with this kind of issue that could not be captured. I think it was an ignorance or a miss by that mechanic that led us to this scenario. Now this client has to overhaul this engine, which is another cost that was not expected. Or if that he did a proper pre-purchase inspection, we won't be here talking about an overhaul of the engine. So my good people, if you are intending to buy a vehicle, Ideal Loss Assessors is here to sort you out.